So welcome all of you on board right now. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, the session on parenting with the title Parenting the Parents. Since the emergence of it, the COVID-19 has fundamentally changed the fabric of our society, I should say. It has brought the whole world to a standstill. The COVID-19 pandemic has actually brought about a lot of challenges also along with it. It has led us into a retrospection of offline and online living also. It has brought down or put us locked up in the houses right now. It has locked up us in our own homes. Fortunately, I should say, most of us are at home with our families. And I don't think now it could be called as an isolation also because we are staying with the members whom we love as such. And dear parents, I think it is a very, very long vacation for the first time after your child actually started off schooling as such. Because usually we have a vacation of maximum of 30 days or 40 days or maximum 45 days. But this is the first time I think you had a long vacation. And I do hope all my rainbow families are really spending this vacation very constructively. And staying at home, locked up during this COVID period, I feel it is a silver lining. Unfortunately, yes, many of them have lost their lives. But, from everything bad, there comes something good. I think there is a lot of discussions going on right now using virtually the platform, and then we have a lot of educators all over the world discussing about how about education, how to bring about changes in education. So I think it's a good time for us also. And decades of research have demonstrated that parents, child, dad, along with the environment of the family, as well as the primary workers of the children who work with the children, lay a strong foundation for the children's well-being and health as such. So when we usually buy a refrigerator or any kind of electronic gadget as such, it comes down with a list of instructions of how to assemble it or how to operate it. So you get a manual as such. But when we were becoming parents, we didn't get a manual as such. We never got a manual. And it was always told, no, we were told that being a good parent will come to us naturally. It was told like that. And we were taking up this responsibility, being a parent also very well. And I should say that sometimes we are stuck. We are stuck. Whether we are doing the right thing. Should we have done the other way? Should it have given, if I had done this, I would have got some other results. So these are a few things, which comes to our mind because we've been doing parenting with the experience of how we were raised by our parents or how our friends are raising their children or some kind of experiences. So at times, though we know how to do parenting, we need somebody to talk about parenting and give us a few tips of parenting of how to handle a few situations as such. Right? So today we have with us on board Mr. Shridhar Maheshwari, who would throw light on a few parenting tips for us. Mr. Shridhar Maheshwari, MA Psychology, founder and president of Shridhar Life School, New Delhi, believes that psychology is nothing but philosophy done through scientific methods. And being very young, I was actually, your videos used to pop up in the WhatsApps. So seeing your picture, I used to always feel very apprehensive. Like, you're so young, and then how could you talk so much about parenting? Or would you give us the right kind of tips? So I never used to bother to, click it open and see what is the video about. But then one day it so happened that I was idle and I just opened up this video. And I was really struck the way you spoke and how deep you were getting into it and all that. So that day I decided, no, sometime we should call Mr. Shridhar Maheshwari to our school. But it so happened it got postponed and all these things happened, and COVID has given us a long period of time to think about, right? Before we set in the tune or the tone of this session, Mr. Shridhar Maheshwari, I would like to know, what actually influenced you or who influenced you to choose this career of counseling, of reaching out to more people, I would say the youngsters. You also talk about relationships. And I also I'm very happy to know that two youngsters from Chandak family, yourself and Rishabh, I should say, both of you have been doing a good job reaching out to people, talking to people about relationships, counseling children. So you're doing a very good job, which is really very good
Thank
for the nation's growth as such, right? So could you just tell us like how you started off, how you got into this, and how did you start Shridhar Life School?
Yeah, so actually, anybody, in fact, I was doing this seminar in Kochi this one time, and this that was a parenting seminar. Or after seminar, a parent came up to me and they asked, "Sir, if you don't mind me asking, what's your age?"
Hmm.
I got 30. Okay, are you married? No, I'm not. So your ideas are all good, but we'll see what you'll say after you actually have kids. So that
Okay.
so and I get that, and like, okay, understandable. So then uh, I should explain why I got into this, because it is not exactly very normal to see people talking about parenting my age. So the idea is, see, uh, it actually started with my own childhood. So I was fortunate to have a very good childhood in terms, because my dad actually did a lot of study in terms of what are the best practices for relationships for parenting. So I experienced something very unique even for my own time. Like when my friends used to feel that we are really troubled by our parents, it's so stressful how they treat us, and we have so many restrictions. And we used to live very freely. We have all that freedom. Plus, we were very, very open. The environment in our home was very open. So I could that even that time realize that, oh, this home is a bit different than most. And then another layer to that was that my dad actually took the time to explain what he was doing. Like, if I'm doing this, why? If I'm doing that, why? So at an early age, we got this background information on parenting. So like, I am not a parent, but like, I've not done it, but I've received it. So in that sense, I that was my starting point. But later on, I actually became really interested in just good ideas, just wiser ideas for life, whether it's parenting, whether it's relationships. So, because I understood the transformational power that new ideas can have, like one good idea can just lift you up like that and just change your life so quickly. So I realized that this is where I want to be. So I decided in 2016 to actually study it professionally, properly. So I joined my MA psychology, and that's where we actually understood the mechanism of how thoughts, feelings, and behavior, all of these things work. And then after that, just I just got into parenting simply because I used to make videos on all kinds of subjects, and it turns out that parents were probably the most troubled ones. So my videos suddenly did very well, and even that was a realization for me that, oh, parents are actually suffering more than you would imagine. So then I
Mhm.
really got into it. I read a lot of books on it, and I studied the psychology behind it. And in past 2 years, I've counseled more than 120 parents, like one-on-one, for managing their young children and even teenagers. And now I've got a really, really good insight. So in
Yeah.
fact, so I was like reading this joke on this internet. So a woman goes to the doctor, and like, she's very troubled. She just says to the doctor, "Doctor, I have BP. I have this." She tells him five symptoms, and I don't know what I have. Please tell me. My head is aching. I'm angry all the time. Like, what do I have? Do I have BP? Do I have diabetes? What do I? The doctor says, "You just have children. You don't have any disease. All
Okay.
your symptoms, you just have children." So
Okay.
that is to just tell you that I understand the pain that comes with parenting. So yeah,
Yes.
and so that has
Yeah.
been kind of my journey with it.
Yeah. And you also shared in your profile that, transformation of knowledge to individuals is going to help us in the growth of the nation as such. So that's your dream.
Oh yeah, so see, ultimately, if you think about this, uh, all progress of whether a community or nation or even the world ultimately comes with better and better ideas, and as they accumulate over time. So, like,
Yes.
if you think about this, what do we have over other animals? humans, we are able to, through language, communicate ideas and store them, and the next generation can use them and build on that. And that accumulation has like enabled us to live a life that we are. So this is why fundamentally I understand the ideas are the most important element. Like you can't touch them, but they can bring so much change. So this is why, and the same for your life. If you want to be happy, if you want to be more satisfied, if you want better relationships, s at the core, you just need some better thoughts, and then behaviors come after that. So, and
Yeah.
yes, that goes for nations also. Yeah.
Okay, right. So, after I read your profile, it was really very inspiring also. So I just understood that, the child parent diet really works very well with your profile, because as far as I've heard from you, what relationship you had with your family, how your dad inspired you, or, gave a message through a role modeling, I should say. Right?
Yeah.
So your studies, your dad's wise lessons, your efforts, your own experiences, and added to it the world's practices and knowledge, that you have come down to this platform of counseling and reaching everybody. Right? Good
Yeah.
job
Yeah.
done, Mr. Shridhar. So I think our parents know more about you right now, right? So shall we get into the session of question answers? Because
Yes.
of course, I really couldn't get the questions directly from the parents for this session as such. But
Mhm.
I do hope for the next session we will be able to make it up with the direct questioning and answering as such. But
Yeah, I would
these
love.
questions, yes, thank you. And these questions, what I have for you today is just from the way, like whenever parents meet me as such, they share a
Hmm.
lot of things. So even I try to guide them and give them advices, but sometimes it happens and it comes from a professional. It is really very good. So
Hmm.
actually, the first thing is like whenever kids do something good, we usually go for appreciation, because you know that appreciation is really, really a very good, motivating one. But appreciation is where we feel it should be a due one, not a fake one as such,
Yeah.
right? So, how does complimenting the kids for the small, small works done by them boost their self-esteem?
Hmm. Okay, this is actually more important than most people think, and I'll tell you the reason. So
Yes.
behind complimenting, there is this fundamental need, which is what are you paying attention to? The thing is, and now the research on in psychology is very clear now that all of us are born with this negativity bias, and some people don't know about this because the negativity bias is simply like, for example, the profit of 100 rupees will not make you as happy as the loss of 100 rupees would make you sad, which means that our mind is gen gradually, naturally, it tends towards the negative, and there are evolutionary reasons for it because we had to care for dangers more than we had to care for the good things. So, the and that psychology is still there in us in our day-to-day lives in 21st century. So the what happens is when your child is behaving in your house, when your child is doing all sorts of things, it's very natural to only see the mistakes and only focus on what we can improve on. Okay, because you take for granted what's good; it's already there. So why pay attention to that? And that's where a lot of problems arise. Okay, so because your attention is generally going towards negative, and it's not your fault. But the good news is, once you understand that this is happening with you, that I am naturally paying more attention to negative, you can take the conscious effort of stepping back and say, wait, now I'm going to genuinely focus on the good as well. And this will first change you as a person because then you become a more thankful and positive looking person. That will first make you happy. And it'll be helpful in even with your husband and wife. It'll be helpful even with your students and in every relationship. So this is why complimenting comes from this background. This becomes so, so important. So think about this. If in the last 1 week you found nothing to compliment about, if you did
Mhm.
not compliment your child about anything, it means there is fundamentally wrong with what you pay attention to, like which is just becoming lopsided. So that's the starting point. Then,
Okay.
if you talk about motivation, so yes, very important because think about this. Your positive comments are in a way feedback for the child that my course is correct. So many times what happens is in your need to want more from the child, you think, oh, if I appreciate right now, maybe the child will become lazy and child will become say, I've got it. So instead of complimenting, what parents sometimes do is, oh, wait, that's not enough. There's more. What is this? So a simple example would be like recently I was like uh, counseling this parent. So the child was not socializing at all. Okay, so I
Mhm.
encouraged the child. I was working with the child, and I made a plan with the child. Okay, this is how you. Let's make a plan. You'll talk to your friends. You'll even play video games with them. We want you to interact with friends. So
Okay.
earlier he used to do 10-15 minutes. Okay, and now after 1 week, after we made a plan with the child was doing something like 45-50 minutes, which they wanted. But when I
Mm.
talked to parents, the dad's first reaction was that, sir, I mean, he's doing it, but still, he's only playing video games. He's not exactly talking to the child. I'm like, you have completely ignored the increase from 15 minutes to 45, 50 minutes, which you wanted. So
Yes.
they think that if I compliment this right now, suddenly the child will become complacent and they don't compliment it. And the child will feel whatever I do is not enough.
Mm.
Like no matter how much I improve is not enough. So also how far can I go? So this is very demotivating when you do not notice small
Yeah.
improvements. So this is why noticing small improvements and telling them, the child says, oh, I'm on track to some improvement. My parents are looking at it. Maybe I'll go a few more steps. So this is why
Okay.
it becomes very, very important. And like I said, it becomes a feedback mechanism for the child. Okay, oh, I got
Mm.
the feedback. My track is right. I'll go further. And the last point here is that ultimately the child will grow because uh, when they understand that you are complementing something, that
Mm.
tells the child that this is what my parents expect. With your
Okay.
compliments, the child gets to know that this is
Mm.
what my parents like, they appreciate, they value in life. And since every child wants to actually make the parent proud, wants to actually love them and approve of them. So the child
Mm.
will notice these things that since it seems to be important for my parent, I want this approval again. I want this approval again. And they will stay on
Yes.
that path because deep down they do want this. Okay, so
Mm.
with your compliments, you're also conveying your deeper expectations. Okay, this is what I
Right.
find good in life. Okay,
Right.
so and for those reasons, compliments, small positive, just appreciation or acknowledgement of efforts is just
Mm.
so very crucial.
Okay.
Yeah.
The continuation of it, see, as you said, complimenting is very important. But using superlatives, I heard it is going to damage or, it's going to cause harm to the child. Is it true? Like using, you are amazing, just complimenting them using superlatives. Will it really affect the
Yeah.
child in a wrong way?
It's hard to say whether they'll do it. It'll harm the child, but the thing is, if it's too much, it'll start to lose value. Because remember this, the
Mm.
children are not fools. They understand authenticity very, very well. It's like, for example, if everybody has done mediocre, the child knows when they have done mediocre job. Okay, and if
Mm.
you come in and say, "Oh, you were amazing," then the child sees, "Oh, wait, that is not honest," and then your amazing loses value. So
Yes.
sincerity and authenticity is the key here. Like you don't have to
Mm.
go overboard, you don't have to do less, but if you genuinely mean it, then
Mm.
the child must feel that authenticity. So that is the key there.
Okay. So, like if, for example, a child draws a sun with a face, a smiling face. So instead of saying it's amazing, you could always say the smile that you drew on the sun is very cute.
So what you're saying is about being specific, right? So yeah, that has
Yes.
a value too. So instead of like, and about that, I would definitely say yes. It's
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's actually better to genuinely pay attention and focus on the specific behavior. So
Okay.
that is, although overall, see, we can have a balance of both. Sometimes it's important to do very, very specific behaviors. This is what you do well. So they also know that you're paying attention and you're being authentic. But sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's a balance of things. Sometimes larger compliments, when done right, oh, you handled that very well overall. So like overall, you were a great leader today. So a large sometimes larger patterns can be helpful too. So
Okay.
again, it depends on what you really want to say. So
Okay.
a balance of both could be useful. Yeah.
Okay. So complimenting is good, but balancing is very important so that the
Balancing
child
authenticity.
knows.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the child knows for what he or she is being complimented for.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And in fact,
And
you can do that at the same time. Like even in a single compliment, you can start with the specific and go to the general. But the
oh,
mentioning the specific is good because then the child knows, oh, this is what is being valued, and this
mhm.
that's what is actually paying attention, and not just saying, oh, very good, go ahead, very good, very good. So then they understand
Yeah.
that they're not actually paying attention; they're just doing it for the sake of it. So
That's
yeah.
true. That's true. So, is it okay that if we give an appreciation with some material? See, I keep seeing my pre-primary kids, for example, whenever they do something good, we usually give them a star, and every day they look for that star. So, if the star doesn't come, the child is very sad. So immediately there is
Hmm.
a call from the parent. No, ma'am, today my child was very sad because no, he didn't get the star. So, is it the same thing? Like,
Yeah, so basically this idea of stars, it actually came from behavioral psychology and behaviorism. So the idea there was that if
mhm.
and this worked on animals really well, which was ki, if you reward the right behavior, the behavior increases. Okay, the behavior
Continues. Yeah.
increases. So
Correct.
it definitely has a lot of value because we do have these reward mechanisms in us, and when we are
Mhm.
rewarded for something, we would do this more often.
Okay.
However, when you turns out now there are some contradictory researches as well. Contradictory as well, there are some criticisms to this as well, and we that must be understood, which is that
Okay.
when that in the long run you
Hmm.
don't want the child to work for the star. You want the
Yes.
child to work for good reasons. So,
Yes.
because the stars will not stay with the child for the long run, the reasons will.
Hmm.
And there was,
Hmm.
in fact, an experiment also where they said that they asked some children to draw and there was a
Hmm.
reward. And then for some
Yeah.
children, they didn't give any reward. And in the long run,
Yes.
they found out that the people who were not given any reward, they continued it because they did it for their own reasons, intrinsic reasons. So this intrinsic
Oh.
extrinsic. So uh, here the idea is we need to look at children just in totality. So yes, rewards could be one thing, but they can never be the whole plan. Like if that is your whole game, okay, I'll just motivate you through rewards, then you
Yes.
are at a loss. So rather try to understand that child has multiple motivations. Reward is
Hmm.
just one among many. So you can use it, but don't rely too much on it. And what are
Okay.
other motivations? Other motivations are what is
Hmm.
valued by society. What are the
Okay.
long run benefits of the thing? So if you really tell the child and if you really
Hmm.
convince the children, these are the long run benefits of these behaviors. With time,
Hmm.
if you do that repeatedly over time, the child actually do get convinced and they have intrinsic reasons now to do that behavior. Then they do it for social approval. If you realize, if
Right.
the child realizes that this will help me belong,
No.
this will get me approval from others, then they can do it. So we have multiple motivations to do some
Okay.
behavior. The more
Okay.
motivations you engage, the better. Yes.
Okay, good. So in the same way, now it's all about complimenting we spoke about. Now children do make mistakes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And as a parent, some parents have all the patience once they talk to them or whatever it is, and then the time it is like they try to physically handle it. Also sometimes. I've heard one
Hmm.
of my parent coming down, and he was a student of high school, I should say. And the
Hmm.
parent was really very upset that day when he came to school to me. And then he said, ma'am, he doesn't listen to me. He always watches the television. That's just an example what I'm trying to tell you. And so I got really very wild and I just went to hit him. And he just told me one thing. You hit me for what? I mean, what wrong did I do? Explain it to me. Only then you hit me. So now the thing is, the parent felt very bad of the behavior of the child of asking, why are you hitting me? So how do we
Hmm.
deal with kids when they make mistakes?
Hmm. That's a tricky one because, and this is where sometimes parental instincts do more harm than good because so many times, simply because parents are
Hmm.
the elder ones, simply because they have the authority, they
Hmm.
sometimes think that whatever they decide to be the mistake is the mistake, and that's
Okay.
not the case. So many times they're simply operating out of their personal preferences. I don't like the way you're sitting right now. I don't like what you're eating. I don't like that friend of yours. I don't like what you're wearing. And suddenly, and I don't like simply how you do your homework. This is the wrong way. So
Okay.
sometimes they're simply deciding the
Hmm.
mistakes based on their personal preferences instead of
Okay.
objective reasons, and that's
Hmm.
where it gets toxic. That's where it gets really in a way unethical sometimes, because then you're just pushing your agenda. So the first
Hmm.
question has to be, is the mistake based on real objective reasons? Will other people confirm that it's a mistake, or is it just your personal preference? Because so many
Okay.
times parents,
Hmm.
so this question is so important. Okay. And
Hmm.
if you find out that
Hmm.
this deep down ki, oh, so for example, I'll just give you a small example. So
Okay.
so many parents tell me ki the kid, he
Hmm.
just would not keep his table tidy. Okay.
Okay.
I'm like,
Okay.
okay, so, all right. And of course, they don't like it. They fight over it. They scold the child. I'm like, okay. So tell me,
Hmm.
if the child does not keep it tidy, what are the harms?
Hmm.
It's just irresponsible. Like, okay, you call it irresponsible. What are the harms? Tell me objective harms. And they're like,
Hmm.
I said, I mean, it just doesn't look good. The room does not look good. Okay, so
Hmm.
it's not pleasing to the eye. Any other real harm? No,
Hmm.
so there's no real harm. It
Hmm.
means if there are, you cannot identify a real harm, then it means
Okay.
it's just your personal preference of aesthetics in that case. So that's just an example. So what I mean to say is, in that case, you cannot act like that this is a mistake. Ultimately, it comes down to personal preference. So
Hmm.
this is why before scolding the child or before doing anything, ask that whatever I'm about to say is mistake. Is it my thing, or will everybody think it's a mistake? So that's the starting point. Then uh, remember this, that children asking you why it's a mistake, tell me why it's a mistake, is the best thing that your child can do. Do not
Hmm.
resist it. Reason being, that shows that your child is a reasonable human being. They are asking the question why. You must
Hmm.
never ever suppress that, because you do not want a child who's weak, who's just obedient, who's just listen to anything, who'll just obey authority without questioning things. You do not want that child who'll just say, I'll give in, I'll just yield. No. If your
Yes.
child is questioning, if your child has that critical thinking, if your child is saying, wait, I want good reasons for doing what I'm doing or just going through, this is an amazing thing. Do not
Hmm.
be, don't think that your child has become impudent, disrespectful, and suddenly of a bad character. Not at all. That's an
Okay.
amazing thing. And your duty as parents is to engage with the child. I understand that sometimes you talk for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you're simply unable to convince. Your duty is not to convince the child. Please remember that
Okay.
having a discussion versus actually convincing someone are two different things. Your
Hmm.
job is to have the discussion,
Hmm.
explain your reasons. Even if the
Okay.
child is not convinced at the end of it, that's okay. Then you can say, we've had it, now I'm going to move on to the next thing, and you have to comply because this is something very important. However, you did your role by having that discussion, by discussing reasons, and by answering the child's why. Like, what was the why? Always answer it. Okay. And finally, one idea of dealing mistake is try to shift, like try to, instead of trying to get an apology right now, because many parents get stuck in that. Oh, I want an apology. Tell me sorry. Tell me, admit that you were wrong. They don't
Hmm.
give the child face saving. Instead, try to focus on future instead. Okay, it's
Okay.
okay what happened. How do we avoid this in the future? What will you do next time? And it's easier
Hmm.
to talk about improvement than it is to talk about how someone was wrong. So just
Okay.
framing it in terms of future can actually help you talk about improvement and change, which is what you actually want. Yeah.
Right. Now, yeah, right. Very good. So, is it correct that we talk to the child immediately whenever the child makes a mistake? Should we have the talk immediately, or should we wait? Should we have a
Oh,
talk later?
so yeah, yeah. So there are absolutely no rules for that. It simply depends on your relationship with the child and your emotions. So the ideal here is the
Hmm.
talk must be had when both of them are relatively cool. Because if you try
Okay.
to have a reasonable talk when somebody is triggered, it's gonna go
Yes.
off the rail. So if you
Hmm.
can if you can cool down in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can have discussion. Then if it will take you
Mm.
2 hours, then have it after 2 hours. But make sure when you sit down with the child, you're not coming from a place of anger or resentment or just aggression, just hot emotions, because
Mm.
that will make the discussion very, very unproductive. So that is the
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, true, very true. Because when you are in the hot emotions, you're not balanced, so you will not be in a position to
Yeah,
think also.
yeah, you're
Right.
not
So
very
that
reasonable.
yes, yes, your body will not be, accepting that also. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So we've just had a talk about complimenting, and then we've talked about how to deal with small mistakes. But then whenever we
Hmm.
have kids, like, we have the children of, 0 to 2.5 years treated differently. So do you think as a child grows, we need to have a different kind of parenting at different stages for a
Yeah,
teenager?
oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. In fact, some of the biggest mistakes from
Hmm.
parents come in the form of not being able to adapt to the
Hmm.
changes in child. They're
Hmm.
thinking that, oh, if 3 years back the child was like this, I want that
Yes,
same child right now to behave the same way. Like whether it's declining academics or the child is asking more and more questions, and they think, oh, you were good 3 years back, 2 years back. Why are you not the same kid right now? And that's the biggest
exactly.
mistake. You have to constantly adapt to the child as well, because be very, very careful of the stimulus that is coming from the child. Like where your child is right now will determine your parenting style in that moment. So,
Okay.
and like again, it will differ from person to person, but largely the in when the child is really, really young, let's say under the age of 6 7, the idea is to, as much as you can, try to play with the child, try to, like, it's a very physical age, okay, because you
Hmm.
can't really talk all that much. The talk is very preliminary, so the idea
Hmm.
is be more and more physical with the child. Rough and tumble play is absolutely crucial if you want a normal, healthy, functioning child. Play with them, wrestle with them. It's okay if they get even hurt, but so that's the period, like, you really make sure you focus on that. Then after that, as the child starts to understand more, talk more, then talk a lot with the child, because that's the time, like, let's say from 7 to 12 years, those are the times where you can have probably these are your golden years of actually discussing things with the child, developing those values. And because your authority still works, the child still listens to you, the child is still a bit afraid of you, so you have some influence over the child. They're
Hmm.
still listening, so in that time,
Hmm.
really spending that time with actually training them in the deeper values can be amazing. And then as
Hmm.
teenager and the adolescence comes in teenage years, then immediately be prepared to give them a lot of space, step back, because now with every day that passes, you are less and less relevant for the child. Okay, they want more and more independence. They do not want to actually sometimes be seen with you. They don't want to talk much with you because it's uncool to be still talking to parents, and they want more and more independence from you. In fact, they're
Yeah.
looking to build their own identity. So in fact, rebelling and in fact going against you is the right thing for them, because then this tells them that, oh, I'm probably doing something on my own. This is me.
Hmm.
They want to feel the adulthood. So in that time, take more space, give them more space, reduce your authority to the minimum, respect them 2 times more than you did before, because any small thing, a child is very, very sensitive to disrespect because they cannot take any attack. So all of these changes. And finally, after 18 years, and this is very crucial for some parents, although most of the parents listening right now are not at that stage, but they will, and I must say that in advance. That is,
Hmm.
so when the child becomes an adult, parents
Hmm.
just are unwilling to let go of authority in decision making.
Hmm.
So I see so many households where well into their 20s and even late 20s, the parents are making the final decisions: what career to choose, what woman to marry, what clothes to wear, what time to come home. And you cannot even imagine, like, the degree to which they're still trying to hold on to all the power. And that's an
Hmm.
absolute disastrous mistake. If you want your child to actually be strong, to be independent, and to actually have a good relationship with them, you have to gradually let go of the authority and let them be more and more independent. And so many relationships actually completely get ruined, get destroyed, simply because parent did not want to accept the fact that the child now has their own opinions, they will make their own decisions, and they take it personally as if it's a disrespect to them. and that's a
Mhm.
big mistake. So yeah, it changes
Yeah.
a lot.
Okay. So as you have seen many students, you have counseled many students, right? So what age
Yeah.
would you think would be the right age where the parents stop feeling authoritative and give the children the space to make some decisions?
Hmm. So for that, in fact, it's not exactly all that dependent on age, although it is after a certain point. But during the childhood, it's more dependent on what kind of a bond you have built with your child. The thing is, if you have built a good balance of real positivity, real connection, and real friendship, then you can get away with, let's say, you can get away with a lot of authority. Children can take a lot of authority from you if the bond is great. But once they
Okay.
start getting irritated by you, once the child starts resenting your words, once the
Mm,
child sees gets a lot of negativity from you, then they would not even take authority from you because the bond is
mm.
not there. So this is
Yes.
why so many times, and this is the mistake mothers most often make, is that like up until 7, 8 years, the child is listening, the child is caring, and all of that. But from 9 to 10 to 13 years, the mom is still nagging. Mom is just running after the child, trying to fix them in every way, and there is just so much interaction at home. And by the time the child is 13, 14, they absolutely start hating their mom's voice, their words, and any instructions from them, because now even when she starts to speak, they're like, "Mom, shut up! I don't want to listen to you. Okay, just don't talk." And they'll take everything from the dad, because with dad, the deeper
Mm,
bond is still there. The dad is not
mm.
that involved. There's enough space.
Okay.
So because that
Mm.
bond is still intact, the dad is able to get away with some authority also. Like they can
Okay.
still have a talk with them, listen to them. So for
Yeah.
that reason, it's if you want good authority, the more authority you want, try to build a deeper and deeper bond. So the stronger your bond and positivity and friendship, the more authority you can have. And that is a great diagnosis for your family right now. The great diagnosis would be, okay, right, overall, how many positive and
Mm.
nice and deepening and caring and like really intimate connections or good connections do I have with your child versus how many negative, troubling, and conflicting incidents. That ratio will tell you a lot. Okay. And if that
Mhm.
ratio is becoming more towards negative, then it means your bond is declining. And you immediately need to
Okay.
step back and build the positive back up so that you can still have some authority where it's absolutely necessary. And overall, I would say authority is overrated. You actually don't need it all that much. Try to simplify that. For
Mm.
example, there could be 10 issues with the child. Waking up, what the child eats, how the child works, whether the child, like who the child talks to, what they watch on the video games, like, and what they wear. So there can be so many things. You do not
Mm.
have to decide everything. You can pick your one top one, two, three things and just try to focus on that, the most important ones. Rest of it, just let your child be free, give them as much freedom as you can, because we really do not need all that much. They are free human beings, they need their
Mhm.
freedom, they don't need too much supervision and micromanaging, and it's not healthy
Yes.
either. So authority overall is overrated. You don't need to do that all that
Oh.
much.
Yeah, good to hear that. Yes, parents, I think we need to work on more on the positive bonding, and we need to keep up that relationship, open, so that the children also are comfortable and free enough to take a few decisions which are not harmful for as far as it, right? Okay, that's really a good advice that you have given for us, and also the requirement of changing the kind of parenting according to the requirement. I should say it is not the
Yeah.
age as such. Right. Thank you so much.
Mm.
The next one is like whenever, even at school or at home, we always feel that nowadays the generation, I wouldn't sum up the whole generation as such, but I do feel that we do lack children, respecting the elders and listening to them. So, how do we correct the behavior of the children? How do we correct them?
Hmm. So
This, mm,
I'll talk about both of those things separately. So I'll first talk about respect, because
mm,
you made the observation that children are respecting less. So
yeah.
uh, there is a like, I don't have real data on this, but yes, this seems to be a trend, by the way, that yes, now children are in general more empowered because they have
Mhm,
access to information and they can
mhm,
read that. parents are not everything, they are not gods, and like even elders are, like even teachers are not gods, because now that like we can question them, they are just human beings. And so yes, overall children are more empowered than they were
Mm-hmm.
before. We are part of the information age. So with that, uh, see, often what we called respect earlier was mostly fear, or just fear of being criticized. It was not real respect. Please understand this. Even
Right.
generations ago, real respect is not that easy to earn. So if you thought that in previous ages, the children actually respected them, who knows? Like behind the back or in their mind, what were they talking? Nobody knows. Okay, we just saw
Mm-hmm.
that they were not. We just saw that they were not confronting, because probably it was frowned upon, and there was fear about it, because if they said something, suddenly everybody will come and say, oh, that is so wrong, how dare you talk back to somebody in elders. So it's not real respect, it was mostly fear. And
Mm.
the fear seems to have gone away. Okay, the fear seems to have gone away, which is
Great.
which is actually in a way a good thing, and I'll tell you how. See,
Oh,
uh, ultimately, what we want is people to behave within reason. So, for example, if somebody is going to extreme, then we want fear. It's like somebody is able to about to commit a crime, then we want
mm.
fear in them, because if you
Mm.
do it, there are going to be consequences. But within our normal range, we don't really want people to act out of fear. That's just not a good society. That's just not a good life. We want
Mm.
people to live freely and act nicely, or uh, however they want, for good values, because of good values and good reasons. Okay, so this is
Yeah.
why, and the
Mm.
same goes for respect. If I am
Mm.
respecting people, it must be for good reasons. And at respect, while I say is, we must now, it's high time that we let go of the idea of respecting the elders. No, the idea is
Mm-hmm.
respect everyone, because, and if you think that it's okay to just be sarcastic with your child and just say, oh, you are nothing, or you can't do anything, because, oh, I told you, you're just so useless, you're just so lazy, and just constantly disrespecting the child. And the moment child said something like, oh, how dare you disrespect me, you have been
Mm-hmm.
doing it constantly in your words, and the moment the child says something back, suddenly it's like it's a matter of disrespect.
Mm.
They learned it from you. They learned it
Yes.
from you.
So
Okay,
good
so
morning.
this is why you have to live respect to teach respect. And even if your child is 2 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, they deserve respect just as much as you do, just as much as the prime minister of a country will do, just as much as the head of an organization or principal will do. Anybody,
Yes. Mm.
anywhere, everybody needs respect, and the same goes for a child. And when you come from that place, that we respect people just in this basic sense, that I value your existence, I value that you have a right to be treated nicely. That is what we're
Okay.
talking about. Each person is
Mm.
born with the right to be treated nicely with decency. And
Mm.
this is what we need to teach them. And you teach them by example. So when you talk in your house, that's what you do. Okay, I'm gonna treat you decently, I'm gonna treat you with respect, I'm gonna treat you like you are a worthy human being. Okay, and you start from those values, and that's where you cultivate respect. And when the child grows up, then the child, whether they talk to elders or younger ones or richer people or poorer people or a boss or employees, the child
Mm.
must respect everyone. So this is a much bigger concern than respecting elders. In fact, you should stop saying respecting elders altogether. Why respect elders? Elders can also do all kinds of wrong things. Inspect,
Yes.
instead, give people this respect on a basic human level. So this
Mm.
is what I would say. And now I'll come to the correcting part, correcting behavior.
Yes.
Now
Behavior.
this, yeah. So see, this is probably the most difficult area, because largely uh, it's out of your hands, because actually reliably changing people,
Mm-hmm.
like you can try, but the results just might not come, because of several reasons. First of all, a lot of our behavior, like in fact 50% of it, roughly, comes from simply our personality. So
Mm.
no, if your child is an introvert and not is very shy, how, and the guests come at home and you want the child to talk to all the guests, because you feel that it's rude that the child is not talking, and what will they think, and you want to correct
Yes.
that behavior. no matter how hard you try, you might not be able to maybe make difference probably more than 5 or 10%, because a large part of it is simply the personality. Simply, and uh, another example, let's say the child has a temperament and the child is naturally very angry. And if you think you can simply just uh, uh, with fear, with simply just if you'll just sit somebody down and after through just explaining the child for a few times, you think you'll suddenly correct all that behavior. You cannot, because temperament, because this core temperament is such a powerful force. So the child's inborn personality is a huge force in how the child will behave. So please remember that before you take on the project of making the perfect child, because
Correct.
there's not much in your hands. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whatever change you can bring, there can be some guidelines. Some guidelines are, of course, if which I discussed briefly earlier as well, reasons
Mm-hmm.
are the most powerful things. If the child gets convinced that this behavior actually is meaningful, it has benefits, and like I'm doing it for actually good reasons, and if it makes sense to their deeper worldview, that yes, this makes sense, then the behavior will come naturally with time. So try to
Okay.
focus more on reasons, discussing reasons, talking why this is important, and then of course it's that is the easier part, like how to do it, what to do it. You can demonstrate it, you can just assist them. And
Good.
another great way to correct behavior is try to do things with them. So for example, if you want to teach the child how to clean the room, instead of telling you do it, you can shift to let's do this together, and for some time make it a joint activity. So it's like proximal improvement, which is the child is in this zone and you are suddenly hoping the child will come here. They probably won't be able to. So you say, oh, I'm here with you, let's do this together, and I'll take you one step here, then I'm together with you, let's take you one step here, and gradually the child is with you. They can learn so many new behaviors simply because you are there with them, and try to, and of course do this in a positive environment. So that is another thing, the joint thing. And then uh, above all, remember that it's a really long-term project. What that means is, if you become very obsessed with seeing the change very quickly, you're going to be very disappointed repeatedly. And plus, if you try with too much intensity, too much force, like, oh, I'll fix you right now, you will crash and burn, because it just won't happen.
Right.
Change can take months and it can take years of you being involved. And that's what the parenting is. You basically, the idea here is you have to turn the gas to the lowest flame and just let
Mm.
it cook for a while. You cannot
Yes.
turn it up.
Yes.
So this low intensity, long run positive involvement, that is what's needed. It's like gradually I'm just with you. I'm there with you on the sidelines, and I'm going to keep nudging you as you go along. I'm going to nudge you as you go along. And you do that for months and months and years nicely, and you maintain that bond. The child still feels good because you're doing it in a good manner, and gradually the child is nudged towards better and better behavior. And that is the
Okay.
most healthy philosophy. So this is why I'll tell you, sometimes what happens is mom will do the high intensity thing, like they'll go too much, they'll
Yes.
remind too much, and the dad will do the other mistake of doing nothing. They'll
Nothing.
think that, oh, they'll sometimes think that, oh, nothing works, so just let them be. And they, the laissez-faire parenting, which is okay, okay, just let them be completely on your own, and they stop all involvement, and they're like, okay,
Mm.
the mom will take care of it. That's a big mistake too. So
Mm-hmm.
mom has to reduce it, dad has to increase it, and you have to come to this parenting style
That's
where you say, okay, both of us will stay involved for the long run, and will keep that tension, not the negative tension, just the tension for the child. The child knows that, oh, this is what we expect of you, and in the long run we'll take you there. And the child must see that both of the parents actually care, and they are
mm.
nudging me there. That is
Yeah.
the better way to correct behavior, instead of, oh, say sorry, fix yourself, if you don't do it you'll be punished or I'll beat you. So that won't
Yes.
work.
Right. That's very true, because sometimes I feel the father tells something and the mother tells something, and the child is totally confused what to do. What's the right thing to do, basically, right? And as you said, respect. Whenever we were just talking, it's like namaste. when we say namaste, it is I respect you and I
Yeah.
need the same thing from you, right? So we need to respect the, I mean, all people, right? Rich or poor,
Yeah.
or whatever age they are, we need to respect the soul in each one of them. Right. So that was a very good talk of like how we could correct the children. Right. So now involving kids during, as the discussion was there when you were telling me about involving children and doing something at home, I've heard that just that, when children are involved in household chores, they are better people. They grow to be better individuals. I always hear one thing, a person who knows how to, I mean, who does the folding of his bedspread when he gets up from the bed is a very good organized person. So do you think involving the children in household chores will help them?
Household chores. Oh, yes,
Yes.
definitely. So, see,
Hmm.
the thing is, remember that the child's preferences for how much organized they want to be.
Hmm.
If I typically just talk about organization, it will differ
Hmm.
from person to person. And
Yes.
but having said that, it's definitely helpful that if you involve them in household chores, because see, this is life, okay? And we want the child to experience how to manage a house, whether it's your boy or a girl. So the
Hmm.
idea here is that you give them experiences by like let's cook together, okay, let's clean the house together, okay, so
Yeah.
let's fix something, okay, and let's go out and buy groceries, and this is how you choose good vegetables. So
Hmm.
all of these things, this is what life consists of. So it's not only, it's actually very helpful for them to develop a functional life, but these can be amazing opportunities for you to develop that connection with the child, because these are the moments that you share together. These are the moments that you have, that while you're doing your work with, like, let's say while you're cleaning, you're also talking, while you're cooking, you're also laughing together, making jokes. So these are great moments to connect. So the best idea for chores is, instead of just giving orders, sometimes that's necessary, you have to sometimes give orders, but more or less try to involve them with you. Like, I'm doing it, come on, hop along the train, and like, let's do this together. So yes, that's a wonderful thing. You must absolutely try to inculcate
Yeah.
that.
Right. So other than household chores or whatever it is, like involving the children with family discussions, will
Hmm.
that help the child also to make big goals in their life? Like, for example,
Discussions.
yeah, sometimes what we feel is, okay, they are too small. We're not supposed to be talking in front of them. Either it could be the father's business or father's work or mother's difficulty. Do we need to have a discussion about all these things with the children?
Oh, absolutely. So this is, and everybody who's listening, if you could take this one point from the whole thing, like it could be this one, that discussions are probably the most powerful tool that you have in shaping your child, the most powerful.
Okay.
And even like, there have been, in fact, robust researches on this as well. So parents are just worrying all about this, that how do I help my child study better? Like, this is one of the biggest concerns, right? Okay, how do I help
Yes.
my child?
Yes.
And
Yes.
turns out that one of the biggest things
Hmm.
that has been known to actually help the child increase their grades is parents simply discussing with the child on a regular basis. What are you
Okay.
doing? What did you do? What is your plan? And just being engaged with them. So staying involved and just
Mm-hmm.
discussing. That's enough. You actually don't have to give them too many rewards, because if you're
Okay.
discussing it, then
Hmm.
again, it tells the child that, oh, if my mother is spending 15 minutes, 20 minutes every day discussing this, it means that this is actually important for them, and they
Hmm.
don't want to actually disappoint you, even though it might look at even though you might feel in the moment, oh, they don't care about us at all. They're anyway doing everything that they want, but that's not true. Deep
Hmm.
down, they cannot see you disappointed. So when you discuss something on a regular basis, you convey to the
Yes.
child that I find this important, and the
Hmm.
child will then, there will be some improvement. Now that
Hmm.
improvement or that change, that might not be up to your expectations, but it will be there. And
Hmm.
what's the proof? The proof is that when there are parents who do not discuss anything, the child actually does worse. The child's performance goes down. So
Good stuff.
that's
Okay.
what the proof is. And the
Hmm.
and the parents who discuss, then the child is actually doing a lot better than that. So so nobody can guarantee how
Hmm.
much change will discussion bring, but it's definitely beneficial. And this is very, and this has been known for, this has been researched for studies and for other
Hmm.
areas as well. And you
Hmm.
mentioned big goals. So again, if you think about big goals, during discussions, one thing that you can add is you can add a lot of examples and stories of people who have done great things. So try to
Okay.
have discussions, and
Hmm.
just discussing those stories in itself opens your child's worldview to, oh, what are the possibilities? Like
Hmm.
simply discussing, let's say, this actor or this player, this athlete, they put
Hmm.
in 8 or 10 years of work, and then this happened. Then this
Hmm.
businessman who spent 10 years of struggle, and they failed in these two businesses, and then they did this new business, and oh, then they're like, okay, this is how the world works. So ultimately, think of discussions like the channel through
Okay.
which you can pass on any information with your wisdom or values. So this is
Hmm.
why every day, like, you should make this, whether you want to or not, whether whatever your life is, whatever your life conditions are, at least make 30 minutes of simply just good casual discussions of sharing with your child, like these discussions, and try to bring in more and more subjects into it.
Uh,
As you have the communication channel, you can discuss health, you can discuss success, you can discuss studies, you can discuss their friendships, you can discuss their emotions. And yes, the
hmm.
more you discuss, you actually get to know what's going on within the life of your child. So and again, this is another very important point. If you want to
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
relevant to your child, like when you speak, if you want your child to pay attention to that,
Hmm.
you have to you have to make the child feel that you know what their reality is. You have to make the
Okay.
child feel that I know what's going on with you, because if the child feels, oh, they are from different generations and they don't understand what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, and they'll just come in and say anything which is not even relevant for me, you will become irrelevant for them. How do you stay
Hmm.
relevant? Through discussions and
Discussion.
understanding their realities. Ki, oh, this is where my child is at, so I have to operate from there. Like if the child is playing video games, what is the
Hmm.
child's reality? Like, why is he doing that? Where is he? Like, what is he deriving from that? Instead of your own reality. And how do you know the child's reality? Through discussions. So,
Discussion.
uh, discussions is just the absolute fundamental of the relationship. You have to
Right.
discuss almost. And you mentioned one more thing, and that sometimes parents think that the child is too young or something. There's no such thing as that. And I can give
Hmm.
example from my own household. Even when we were, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old, my dad
Hmm.
discussed with us all the money matters and even all the conflicts. We were in a joint family, and as we all know,
Yeah.
in joint families there are conflicts. So
Yes.
he discussed everything that happened. Okay, this is happening, why it's happening, and adults used to say, "Oh, these are kids. Just they'll shoo us away. You can't listen to all of this. This is adult talk."
That,
There's no such thing
that's
as that. You can understand
mm,
everything. You can involve them in talk. You can talk about everything with them. Everything.
oh,
So yeah.
very good, very nice. See, this as a parent myself, I always used to feel that. I think now it's clear for me also. We always have this kind of thought that people who have come through difficulties, those who are tightly tuned with difficulties right from their childhood. Uh, Maybe it's by chance or it's like they do very well in their life. Now our kids, most of our kids, like we try to give them what we didn't have in our childhood, and so we're giving all the comforts to the children, right? So will this comforts be like pulling the children back? Because most of the
Oh,
parents feel that oh, now they just step into an AC, they go get out, they step into an AC car, they come into a school where there is AC, they're so very comfortable. So when we were young it was different, we used to feel all the seasons, so that is the reason we are able to go through all this and reach a particular level in life. So will our kids be able to reach when we are giving all these
uh,
comforts?
yeah, so this is definitely happening, and that is kind of the like why technology or just improvement in life or just upgradation of lifestyle is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it makes us more comfortable and makes our life good, but then it also prevents us from developing the resilience to handle if it's not there. So that happens side by side. So we need to kind of tease out what's really important here and what's not. So for example, if the so it's very hard now to take away
Mm.
AC, to take away internet, to take away a good bed,
Yes.
or take away the car. Okay, so
Yes.
we can't really do that. Instead,
Mm.
what we can do here is that given the physical things, the physical comforts that they have, that's okay. But you have ample opportunities to still put your child in real conditions where they need to, where there are real adventure, there are real risks, and the child has to be uncomfortable in the sense, how do I handle this? And the
Yes.
child might have to face disappointment. The child might even cry, and those are good things. Do not try to protect those things. So, and this is again uh, like on average, because it can sometimes be
Mm.
different also for mother and father, but on average, men are the dad style parenting is, go ahead, go out, take risk, it's okay, adventure is okay, even if you get hurt, that's okay, well, it's all fine. And the mom
Mm.
gets worried, okay, okay, what if it hurts the child, or like what if the child actually gets severely injured? Oh, I want to protect my baby and all of those things. So
Mm-hmm.
in this case, and this is probably also why so many times single moms suffer a lot, because single moms, they don't have the that instinct to be okay with when the child is at risk, at some risk. So this is why sometimes we want that balance, that mom will
Mm.
come with the protection, but the dad will come with the adequate risk which is necessary for the child, getting hurt
Mm.
also, falling on the ground and failing, and sometimes crying, and sometimes just not being okay with things. So we need both of them. So you, right now, and like initially I said, rough and tumble play, all of those things are absolutely important in really having your children uh, uh, just develop the resilience and the strength. So in this comfortable life, you can and still push your child into the higher and higher things of like what they can manage. So for example, uh, let's say your child actually joins a new sports team, and so initially the child comes back home and says, and they cries like, mom, those people were mean to me, I don't like it, I don't know, I don't want to do this. And they suddenly feel, oh, I love my child, I don't want to see them suffer, like I've investing so much into their happiness, because the best thing that I want in my life is just to have my child should always be smiling. I cannot see my child like that. That's where you make the mistake. That's where you make the mistake. So in those cases, the better idea is to let the child suffer a little bit, but you be there to make sense of it. You be there to make sure that there's nothing to have, like there are no severe damage there. Okay. So in those
Mm.
cases, taking away that comfort is very, very
Mm.
important. And sometimes, let's say, this also happens in sibling fights. Like you can't just go ahead and beat both of them and say, oh, this is right, this is wrong, and they say like you never fight. No, it's okay when they're fighting and when they're
Right.
hurting each other. You have to just be there to tell them, teach them about boundaries. But you
Mm.
cannot just say, "Ki, okay, like I can completely stop this," because in those things also, the child is through the conflict, through the negativity, through those anger, and the child is learning a lot about the world. Like, what can I do in that moment? What I should not do? How do I adapt? And that's where real learning happens. So
Mm.
uh, you have to sometimes create those circumstances in this lifestyle. So, and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, right. Very true. Because a lot of learning happens on the ground. That's what we always tell. When they play a game, when they lose, they learn how to face that failure. Or if they fight with
Yeah,
somebody, they know how to handle it, right? So
yeah,
when you allow the children to play, they also learn a lot of life lessons as such, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
It's
very
probably
true
one
as
of the
well.
best things. Best things.
Best
Like
thing.
if you want a nice, responsible, in the long run, a functional child, team sports, and especially team sports is very, very crucial, because it teaches you a lot how to
Mm.
cooperate, and how to sometimes sacrifice your own interests for somebody else's, and how to manage conflict, and how to play the game so that in a manner that not only I maximize my own interest, but I have to take care of somebody else's interest. Like I can't be too selfish either. So you learn so many lessons just through sports, and just and especially team sports. So that's a
Yes.
very, very important part.
Yeah, yeah, good. Like sometimes whenever we get calls from parents sometimes. For example, I will just give you the online classes when it was going on right now. So the parent just gives me a message, ma'am, please give a call to my child and ask him to attend the online classes because he's not attending the classes. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. Then I will do it. But the thing is, the next message would be, please do not tell him that I messaged you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of advice do you have for such parents as such?
Yeah, so and that's a reality. That's a reality. Some parents are actually afraid of their children because they, if they realize that the child actually gets to know, because children can be scary. Children can be scary. Of course, they can be. They sometimes can get very aggressive, very violent, and they can just make your life so difficult. In fact, most parents. Yeah. So this is a reality.
So
So in that case.
is it that the parent wants to stay very good for the child?
Yeah, that could be it too. Yes, they want to remain popular and let the teacher face let the teacher be the bad cop as well. So yeah, that can be the case. However, I would say that more or less, like once in a while it's okay, but more or less it's not the best strategy, because it you should question it, that why can
Mhm.
you not be
Yes.
completely open with the child? Like, what are you doing wrong, or what are you missing out that is
Hmm.
just becoming difficult for you to be
Hmm.
completely transparent with your child? Okay, so
Hmm.
either you are probably already doing it too much, that you are saying, oh, I can't do it anymore, or maybe you're just looking for too much approval, which is again, remember that parenting cannot be a popularity contest. Sometimes you have to do
Yes.
the necessary things.
We-
Uh, like, it will differ from people to people, but in general, I would say that you should not be in a position where you have to hide things and be scared. So, why are you
Mhm.
doing it? You have to identify that reason and fix that. So, that's not the ideal state. Definitely not.
Okay. So overall, with all these questions, I've just understood the most basic thing is parents need to have good talk, qualitative talk, spend time with their children, isn't it?
Yeah.
So a talk on positive things in a very positive way will help us, be in every part of their growth as such, right? So one last question for the session, because I think we have had a good talk, and of course our parents have a lot more questions for you, I think. So I would request my parents to mail it up to my mail, which I would be sending it across in the groups as such for any more questions. So I think we will also share these questions with you on mail as such, so that we could continue this episode of talking the next time whenever it is possible, right? One more thing is, like, if suppose the last question before that, if some kids, no, we find some kids doing little poor in their academics. So children, I mean, the parents are disappointed, right? So,
Hmm.
do you take up counseling for such kids as such?
Yes, yes, I actually do. So I work with both parents and children. And
Mhm.
initially, my usual model is I first work with the parents. So I try
Mhm.
to understand their parenting style, and if they're making any mistakes, we work on that first, and then we work
Mhm.
on the child. So yes, I definitely do work with both parents and children. Yeah.
Is it on telephone or a phonic
Yeah,
conversation
yeah,
that goes on?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, right now all my counseling is on phone and Zoom. So yeah, that
Okay.
uh, it's all
Okay.
online. Yes.
Right, right, right. Okay. So the last question is, right now, you know that everybody is locked down in their own houses, right? So what advice do you have? What could the parents do in this last period of lockdown as such, spending time with their children? How can they spend it very qualitatively or constructively?
Hmm. See, this is like you said in the beginning. All the bad times can have some good lessons and some
Good.
silver lining as well. So the same way for parenting right now, uh, what is being forced upon us by the society is that you have to stay home, and you're just there in the presence of your child. Okay, the luxury that you probably did not get before, especially the men. Okay, especially males, fathers who just did not get that opportunity earlier, and now that you
Right.
are at home, you can just make up on the things that we just discussed, like simply sitting with the child on a regular basis. Okay, simply being involved a little more, just on a decent level, not go too much, but just involved with the child, just being able to monitor them in the sense, okay, this is what my child is, this is what my child is doing, and just interact with the child. So this is a great opportunity. And for mothers, I would say it's very tough, because now they, earlier they used to get at least this breathing
Either
space when the child was
to
at
go to
school,
school.
at least they had that was a sanity for the mothers. But now that's been taken away. Now the child is at home all the time, and when they see the child 24 hours, it's just very hard to see them in their bed using their phones. So for mothers, I would say, see, try to also focus on yourself and other things in life as well, because in this time, uh, your natural instinct is to make sure that the child is on track, is doing okay. And since the
Hmm.
interaction is so much right now, it
Yeah,
can get to such levels of
100%.
nagging and micromanaging. Yeah, so it's not healthy for anyone. So you can mentally simply just take a break. So, for example, from 10 to, let's say, 4 in the evening, I don't know what my child is doing. Like, my child is on a vacation, or my child is like, I don't even see my child. I start seeing my child after this certain time, as if the school is still happening. So that
Okay.
mindset could give you that space also. And finally, see, uh, this is again a great time to build
Mm-hmm.
great memories, because remember this in any way, now that is so much more easier because of this lockdown. Because
Mm.
earlier, this is something that uh, people just sometimes do not focus on, because you take it for granted. So what? But this is the time to actually sit down with the child, play games with them, watch things with them. So definitely make use of it, because this might not stay for long, and the routine life will come back in a few months. And so that can.
Yes.
And final one more thing, by the way, uh, we are going through a pandemic, so try to make sure that you first learn to be optimistic yourself, that it's okay, in the course of humanity things happen, and you try to teach that to the child as well, like not
Yeah.
get too depressed and anxious about this, that in the long run we will manage, let's just do the right things, worrying won't help. So let's just stay optimistic, to try to keep it optimistic in your own home, and for yourself and for your child.
Yes, thank you so much. We have to live on. We have to live on, learn to live on with the corona, right? So we need to
Yeah.
continue with our normalcy. So we look forward for a normalcy in the nearest future. And thank you so much for being here with us, Shridhar. Signing off today, hoping that our parents have had a treasure of information, and hope they will look forward for the next session. Thank you so
Oh, thank you.
much.
Thank you so much. It was an honor talking to all of you. And thank you, ma'am, for
Yeah.
hosting this. And yeah, looking forward to more such talks with you. So yeah,
Thank you. Bye.
thank you. Bye.